Show them what we're working on.
Right. So we
Ah,
are. You okay there?
yeah, I'm good. I'm here.
All right. So yeah, we're working on Turbo Pit Fighter, which is a comic book. I don't know what comic book means nowadays, but we have this idea of a strong female character in a post-apocalyptic setting. Um, we've been talking about this for a while, but we're getting it off the ground. We have one issue done as far as pencils and plot, and the next issue is in progress. So on my screen, you're seeing the second issue being made, and on Kurt's screen, you're seeing the inking happening of the first issue, which looks gorgeous. Even though I can only
Thank
see
you.
a 1 inch, a half an inch thumbnail, it looks good. Um,
Thank you.
in our
And
last episode, we were laying out some story. See on my end, I was laying out some panels. This is possibly page one of issue two, but this is where I wanted to kind of bring Kurt into a discussion and see, maybe if we need to be a little more creative in sequencing things. You could start this part of the story at another point in the comic too. So, um, just going over where we left off last time is, the first issue is going to be starting in a flat. I mean, the way I imagine it, it's going to be starting in a flashback. But I'm wondering now if we should maybe make this happen a couple of pages in. And here's why. So here you can see my old notes. These pages are yellowed because they are more than 20 years old. And yeah, I mentioned my Image Writer LQ printer back then. I think this was actually printed off one of those printers with the little holes on the side of the pages that you have to tear away.
yeah,
Dot matrix. I mean,
yeah,
before dot matrix. Right, you remember those good
yeah,
old days.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so I'm working off old notes and I'm trying to update things and I'm trying to make it more cohesive and everything. But our first issue ends off with the character in flashback, which means she's the young version. She's just a kid, and she just saw her family get killed, and she picked up weapons and started fighting back. And the next issue is going to fast forward about 2 years. So she's a teenager here, and she's a smuggler, and she's working for. Hey, you could even see if you some of these word balloons that we blocked out. I mean, narration panels. It says the controlling RM forces are bitterly split. The ruling family, who controls all the automated weaponry, has no more use for about 25,000 foot soldiers who occupy the hinterlands. Last 2 years, I've been a smuggler for a resistance cell operating out of the orphanage. I've become increasingly more daring, and I'm fast when I need to sneak behind RM lines. Head mistress sends me on the most important runs. I can pass for a boy, and she says I'm the bravest kid in the resistance. Dot dot dot. The truth is, I was willing to do anything because I didn't care what happened to me. I was numb inside. So here we see Turbo is indeed breaking through enemy lines, taking advantage of the bombing of this checkpoint. Um, here it starts out. This page starts out where she's trying to get past this checkpoint, and she points out to the unaware guards that there's a glider dropping some bombs, and then everything blows up here, and there's a lot of what do they call these sound effect uh, lettering graphics,
Yeah,
Bragadoom
yeah.
and Kaplow, and we're showing all these explosions and bodies flying everywhere as she sprints forward. And so I'm just about to start laying out the next page. But what I wanted to ask you is looking at the whole kind of synopsis for the whole issue two. There's going to be a couple of scenes that go back and forth between the present day and the flashback. So we have this scene where she's going to go to this. Here are the rough layouts. There's going to be this scene where she She penetrates the enemy lines, and she goes, tumbling down the hill, and she goes to safety, and she lands here at this family-owned pharmacy. And then there, she makes a transaction with the stuff that she's smuggling. Um, she's got these radioactive peas, and you can see here the people have these special cases with the gloves, that where you handle radioactive stuff. Um, so when they take it out of the case, they have to measure it and count it, and then they give her in return this surprise package. We don't know what's in there. Um, in the meantime, there's this scene here where the promiscuous daughter of these people is coming on to her and trying to convince her to take her with her, and she's under the impression that's a boy, I guess. We don't really explain that, but then then I just have it here, where the girls start, the girl gets caught being too promiscuous, and she starts to get smacked around, and the mom is in the back alley giving Turbo the package and sending Turbo on her way down these stairs into the aqueduct where she's going to return to the orphanage. Um, we're going to cut this here, and then we're going to go back to the present day. But are we going to pick up from the last issue where the Good Humor truck is being pursued by the group of skinheads, and then start having those action sequences? Or there's this other part that's written in here where there's a different group in a transport, a couple in a transport trying to make it to the safe lands, but they're being pursued by the hate breeders. They're caught and robbed and beaten, and then we meet the main bad guy, who's this masked figure called the Unbeknownst One. And they kind of like really do this cruel stuff to the couple, and that's when they discover a poster for the Big Deal Nationals, which is a pit fighting event with a huge prize, in a particular place. And that's going to advance, the longer story arc. Um, so I'm wondering if we should have that sequence next, or if we should go back to Turbo and the Trophy Girl next, and then have that sequence at a different point. Right, and there's also going to be so there's three things, right? What we've started here, the couple getting kind of shanghaied on the road, and then the fight sequence that picks up from last issue's cliffhanger, and then there's going to be a fourth scene where we go back, we're back in the flashback where she's going back to the orphanage, and the orphanage is under attack by the RM, and you know um, Turbo is going to find out that the package that she's holding is like the key to everything, and she's going to get these last minute instructions to go find a special person who's in jail somewhere and give the package to her. Like, that is key to everything. Like, once this person gets the package, they can really activate it and make it a powerful weapon, and prototype weapon and all this stuff. So yeah, so there's that. There's also some parts here where we're going to introduce a new character, this mechanic, and the mechanic will kind of join Turbo and the Trophy Girl in the present day, and then we were in the end of the fight with the hate breeders. They will discover the poster too that announces the big national pit fight, and so that will draw it, like, everybody to this big national pit fight. We'll be just like beating the drums to get up there, but it won't be till they see the poster too, a copy of the poster too. So I guess what we should have is the couple's getting hijacked first. The hate breeders find the poster. They carry the poster, and then when Turbo and Trophy Girl beat them, then they find the poster. But
That sounds logical. I mean, so the thing that keeps coming up for me is, as just a concern, is the back and forth in
Yeah.
flashbacks.
Um,
You know, it's
it's confusing.
it could end up being a little confusing just for like the consistency of getting to know the characters. So I bring it back to the romance part of it. So you know the pages I have right now that are done, which is the first issue, 28 pages. Um, like you said, there is a dream sequence or a remembrance sequence flashback of her in the orphanage, and then the family getting slaughtered, and then it goes into her in the pit fight, you know, with
Yep.
this big burly guy right here. Um, so then he Turbo wins Trophy Girl, and but then Trophy Girl takes off. Trophy Girl gets in trouble, um, and that's the good humor truck, and then Turbo,
Rescues her.
yeah, rescues her, but then she's in the lake, and the baddies are
Yeah, she takes off.
after
She
her.
rescues her, and then she takes off again, and then
Right, right, right,
and then she gets into trouble again, and
right.
you know, she's really kicking and screaming, resisting, you know, being owned by you know, or you know, just being with Turbo. But then eventually she realizes,
So is there a scene where Turbo, you know, is you know, Trophy Girl's like, oh, Turbo's not that bad. Is there a scene that kind of gets that started, or is it more
yeah,
of
that's common.
a constant, I hate you, but I need you
Yeah, yeah, right,
relationship?
right, right. Yeah, so I have.
Okay.
I did have in mind a scene where the trophy girl is alone with the mechanic, and the mechanic, you know, you know, here in the old script, um, I had the trophy girl, you know, maybe talking a little bit about her past, and you know, all the crap that she's been through, you know, all the dirty stuff that she's been through, and her plan of being a high priced hooker in a you know, in a big, like, you know, town or a big, like, civilized area, but that being kind of like a, you know, kind of like a pipe dream, and then the mechanic guy advising her, you're better off, you know, sticking with Turbo because, you know, at least, you know, this is a, you know, a good person that will stick up for you, even though the, you know, the world is so dangerous at every turn. You know, just kind of vouching for her character, you know,
Yeah.
even though she's, you know, violent and, you know, she's a pit fighter, you know, which means she could die at any time. And so yeah, so that was a good question, and I did have something coming up in this issue, in issue two, where that will manifest. Um,
And then Trophy Girl's just like kind of like fresh out of the country, kind of like perception of the world. So she is not you know
well,
having anything to obviously start directing and focusing her into,
yeah, I mean,
you know.
her aversion is to being owned, I guess. You know, like
Right.
she's had it with being owned. She's been owned and she's been passed around for different
Yeah.
owners.
Right.
And you know, so but you know, but here, you know, just because Turbo won her in a pit fight doesn't mean, you know, that Turbo necessarily is, you know, like all the previous owners.
Right.
You know, plus the fact that she's female, you know, that's a whole other dimension. But you know, it's you know, it's just going to be like a process. It's going to be like a journey. Their relationship, yeah. So you know, that's a good place to think about, like, how to you know, bring these scenes through a narrative. And you know, I was just wondering, like, nuts and bolts wise, how to start doing this. Like I can do these pages right now because I'm in this one sequence, but how to do these sequences? Like I'm not sure the way this page came out, whether I want this to be the first page. Maybe we're better off.
I hear you.
Maybe
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that we might end up testing or challenging ourselves is, we're used to like issue by issue coming out, where we don't have to be that um, that strict in that the 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 sequences as a whole will get completed by your issues, um, being pre-written, and now you're reestablishing stuff and everything. But there's nothing stopping us from getting, let's say, 2 issues done and really understanding what the quote unquote completion of it, to give it sort of a graphic novel
right.
feel, and then a release, issue 1 and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't mean that because I'm inking um, the first pages, the first issue pages, that first issue has to come out that way. And I also just don't believe anymore that we need to be that um, resilient. I don't know if it applies, but we're going to come out with a book every 2 months. I mean, that's just not realistic at this point for us,
No.
as well as a lot of people out there that are trying to get their comic book done. But I think what I'm really also saying is challenging the old way of storytelling, making. In other words, the making of this. I mean, we could make 3 issues and not release anything consolidated by issue, or however it's going to be released, so people can own, let's say, a physical copy. But the way we end up finalizing how we want things to be presented by sequence, it's like shooting a movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
not to be so like high and almighty that we're making a movie and all that terminology that goes along with comic books. But at the same time, it's like we have the ability to do what we want, how we want, the way we want, and when we want, and so on and so forth. And and then everybody waits the timing for it to come out. And I think it'll actually be a lot more exciting, and even more exciting for us too.
Yeah. So you're saying don't even make the pages and don't even worry about the order until we're really ready to package the final thing.
Yeah, I mean, if we get to a point where at whatever kind of page count's completed, and we feel like, okay, well, we're going to release these 4 scenes, which make 26
Right.
pages, with a couple of pinups, mock ads or whatever. That's completely up to us. I mean, we're not trying to make a living at this. We're not trying to keep a publisher happy. We're not constrained by any of these old notions that we used to be locked down to. And I've been finding myself more and more lately just letting go of that, not being so rigid, other than as I'm still trying to work, time wise right now with my other work, the ability of just getting
Yeah.
pages done.
And that's why we have this hour
This
a
this
week.
whole this yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah. But I'm definitely going to start constructing, cutting out more time if I've got to wake up an hour earlier, um, just to put an hour in on pages. But the whole premise to our wanting to put the podcast together is to join the legions of people who, you know, find that this is a great way to engage people, and build a fan base and stuff. Um, but we just also have to just be realistic about you know the whole approach.
Yeah. Right. Well, Yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
but part of the content here is us, planning stuff out and mulling things over and options, right?
sure, sure,
And talking about the state of play in comics and comic universes. You can't just say comics anymore because now the movies
yeah.
is bigger than the comics. But
It is odd, and I think the a lot of people would agree that there it's in such flux now. I mean, there's like I was just watching something yesterday on web
yeah,
comics, and this individual, it was actually Jason Brubaker, and he did quite well. I think it's called Webtoons, and and it's kind of like publishing, and he had to have a page out every so often, and so on and so forth. But he used it much like I think, like a Kickstarter in a sense. It was just to get attention, and I think
yeah. I
that's
looked
the
into
secret. That's the secret nowadays, because there is just, whether you're making a comic book, a television, a movie, a video game, or blah 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 blah. People only have so much time, you know. And I'm also not so afraid of the fact that this we spend, let's say, 2 or 3 years making issue one. I hope it doesn't take that long, but at the same time, it gets released. It has its time in the sun, and then we're back to work.
yeah, yeah.
You know, I,
I saw the webtoons thing. It is a platform, and there's definitely a lot of successful uh, franchises on there or titles on there and
yeah,
creators.
yeah,
It's a little weird. It's a little different, like from the traditional comics, and I think it's geared towards a new generation of people that are okay with this digital only format and just basically scrolling
yeah,
down through a story. Um, it was weird for me, because I was looking to see who's on there, and really,
yep,
it's very manga oriented.
yep,
I think all of the big successes on there are manga stories. Um, and I was just looking for, are there any indie stuff? Is there any like superhero stuff? It's not as much, um, so it seems like kind of like more of a niche platform for younger viewers, but there's nothing wrong with making a comic and then making a webtoon version of it and putting it up there. You have all the content already made. You just have to format it. The formatting might be a little bit different. You might, have some panels that don't really, like I'm doing this panel right here. It's horizontal. So I'm not thinking of webtoons. Like, if I was going to webtoon this, I'd probably have to have this side as separate panels, but
yeah,
that's because I'm an old timer, right? I'm thinking about, floppy comics and graphic novels and all this other stuff. And, it isn't really, we're not really chasing the money. We're not really chasing, the fattiness, of the format. Um, and there are so many different things right now, like Patreon is one, where people are posting comics and Kickstarter where people are looking for investors to subsidize their comic making so they can just spend more time on it. um but we are just we're old timers. We have day jobs, and we're doing this as a labor of love,
absolutely,
and we'll see where it goes. Hopefully it'll have its own payout at some point with the content. But that's indie comics, folks. We're like semi-pro. We've been doing this for a while, but we also have it's kind of like the regular lifestyle as well. I mean, I'm an art teacher, and Kurt has also been a instructor, and lots of different other commercial art applications we've both been through over the years. So this is just another one, but this could be very interesting, I think, for me, to get back into comics. And I would love to not only get this one off the ground, but some other titles too. And learning about digital formats, learning about NFTs. That's also kind of like the new frontier. So there's a lot of different ways this could go that we will have to see, but can't really do anything until you have the product. So
Yep.
we are just still, you know, we're still just creating, which takes a long time. Old-fashioned comics are labor intensive, and you know, there are some people that just crank them out, and then there's some people that really, put a lot of thought into it, and try to make like some lasting ideas and characters, which is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the record, I do and am looking forward to having a nice printed copy of this.
Yeah, sure.
And I mean, even to the point that a lot of my own personal research for projects I'm working on, to give it a very unique one-off feeling, not just like a print on demand type of thing. I've actually heard some um, comments through the Garden of Francis Fox Library where some people are like, I would buy more of the printed books if they were quality hardbound because it becomes more of a recognized collector item. I'm assuming I'm still learning. So, once again, just leaning back into where we're coming from, we were always hot to trot to hit the deadline and, have that product out there and then already be working on the next one that's in the can and so on and so forth. But I'm losing that sense of urgency other than wanting to see just more production from my side. So not sitting around trying to worry about, this, that, and the other until we actually have something to worry about.
Yeah,
And I know you're in that same kind of camp. So
yeah. So what's different here is, I mean, a lot of comic creators get together at conventions, or they get together at you know, uh, offline or online or whatever, and they talk about, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So what we kind of are all about here is we're actually scheduling the time to actually create here,
yeah,
right? This is
yeah,
just creation time. You gave me those links about those podcast guys, the comic kayfabe and all that. It's all fascinating stuff, and
cartoonist kayfabe,
yeah, right.
cartoonist
Yeah,
kayfabe.
great interviews and everything. But
Yeah,
when you really just realize, well, these guys are just sitting there talking, and you just see their heads as they're just bobbling, and talking, and these are comic creators. These are talented,
yeah,
professionals. Um, wouldn't it be like, I mean, we're talking as we're drawing, why not use your time? So, so that
yeah.
that's
Oh, I agree.
that's the that's, I guess, one of the differences here. But it's also budgeting time, realistically, in this workaday world, how do you ever budget the time, to make this stuff? People think it's just magically just produced. So, that's what we're doing. We decided we were going to talk about comics and talk about this comic, and then the industry and the movement and the history.
Well, I would say even this as an interjecting on really what a greater sense of what I would hope we would accomplish by doing this podcast YouTube channel thing is to actually get feedback from others. Not only people out there making comic books, but people who really enjoy um, the specific type of comic book we're making, which I'd like to reiterate out loud once again is a black and white book. This is what we're going for, and what we want to see in the way of you know the old school independence.
Yeah.
So and I know there are people out there that really enjoy and very much collect, and it would be great to get some, I don't know, feedback's one thing, but even direction. Because I'm not trying to come off like I know what I'm doing in this new world um, of creating.
Hmm.
Being an artist, comic book specifically. Because there's a lot of fierce competition out there. And I just don't want to just sit back and go, yeah, I got this. I know what to do.
Right.
I'll go here. I'll go to these people. you know. But let me interject another thought I was having, and I'd like to hear what your take on it is. Um, but I think one of the powerful places still to date are comic book conventions.
Yeah, yeah. I heard, people were psyched that the in-person conventions are happening. Seattle's big. The
Hmm.
the San Diego is big, right? And
Yeah. Well, New York Comic Con. That's
New York Comic Con. I don't know. I'm so down on it. The last time I went was years ago, but it was so packed, the
yeah,
lines were so
yeah,
long, and it's just like so oversubscribed. I
yep,
imagine it's
yep.
different now. Because there's the pandemic and everything. But Marvel would have these big booths and big displays, and then DC, and then all the movie companies would, and there would be like these like 2 hour lines to get an autograph from an actor, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but there was also, what was I there for? So I was there to buy. I wanted to buy some oldies, buy some old comics, and
Do
yeah,
some
some
bin
bin
diving.
diving and tickling through some old, like two for a dollar, that's my speed right there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now, can you get old marbles for, a buck a piece? Can you get them, what are they now? Are they 2 for $5? I've heard that they've gone up. I was talking to a comic guy and in a shop in the city, and he was saying that that the days of getting them two for a buck are long over, and that they have them priced higher now. Um, so that's always interesting, because if you can find them cheap and reasonable, then it's probably going to be at one of these conventions where it's a vendor at a table just loosening their load, as opposed to like a retail shop who's got to pay rent and they got to make their nut, right? Um,
I'll tell you what my dream is. And not only having real jobs, but married, and you've got kids as well. But I think one of the biggest things that would help anybody would be to go on tour, go to comic book stores. I always go back to the old days with I forget the name of the show, the what they called the tour, but it was Dave Sim,
yeah,
it was Jeff for Bone.
yeah,
Was it Jeff Smith for Bone?
right.
And then there was a gal, I think, Paradise Lost. I'm sorry that I can't remember everything, but it just that really it just did a number for them, and that's mid 80s. And
Yeah, but
it was,
that's when there was retail. I mean, those stores aren't even there
yeah,
anymore.
yeah, but there's going to be not only those ones that are last standing
Yeah,
because of
there's
COVID.
there's a certain number left, that's for sure. But
Yeah, but who's going to come down the road and be like, yo, I'm going to take a chance here. I love comic books so much. I'm going to get this little retail shop, and they're going to give, blah, 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 blah. I just, the one thing I'll say, Jake, is I have over my life since when we were working together and on, have been astounded on how many times the comic book industry pulled itself out of what was being categorized as the end, and
oh yeah, well I mean the internet really threw it for a loop.
yeah,
Um, I mean, we were talking before about the image revolution. After the
Hmm.
indie revolution, there was the image revolution where, glossy superhero comics were no longer the monopoly, purview of Marvel and DC. Um, so
Right.
we've been through that, and then when the gaming and the internet revolution took over, and kids were spending their American kids and comic fans were spending their time doing other things, we saw a lot of the retail shops close up. I think there might have only been a couple of hundred. Last I heard, like maybe 500 remaining, and now you're telling
Yeah.
me that the Diamond Distributors, the number one distributor, has gone under, right? And they
I didn't. No. Well, I didn't say they're going under.
oh, did they get acquired?
They. I don't know actually. I've heard. Well, I heard that there was. They had a ransomware situation which screwed up a bunch of orders at the beginning of the year,
Oh,
and but yeah, I mean they. I think Marvel pulled out on
oh, okay.
distribution or DC.
Marvel is
It's
Yeah,
so much
Marvel's no
to.
longer with them, so that's a blow. I mean, they Diamond was kind of monopolistic themselves, but they also served a purpose of distributing comics nationwide, and
Yeah.
keeping everybody on time, and keeping it, there was something called pre-orders where comic
Yep.
stores could look at a listing and
Yep.
pre-order it. So that enabled professional comic book creators to just, float an idea, and maybe just have one little drawing, like a cover, like some black and white cover art, float it in the Diamond catalog, and then take pre-orders on that. And if you got pre-orders of 5,000 copies, you were all set. That's a very lucrative
Yeah.
pre-order.
Yep.
And and so a lot of indie makers subsisted on that for quite a while,
Yeah.
until nowadays things are a lot more fractured. And also, you can't ignore the rise of the movies, right? I mean, that kind of cannibalizes the comics. um Although you would think that it helps comic sales. If somebody has 20 bucks, they're probably going to go see a movie before they go buy a comic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the last show I did was in Baltimore, and I think it was 2018, and it's tough. It's tough in the sense that the majority of people are there to see famous people, and it's blazingly obvious, and they've been called into, um, you know, the arena, if you will, as quote unquote, comic book enthusiasts. But technically speaking, they're Marvel or DC movie character driven enthusiasts. So, because I had a lot of, it was just a sea of people on like Saturday, for instance, which is their biggest day, or any comic book show's biggest day usually is Saturday, and it was a lot of blank stares. Not a lot of people would stop because I think their radar is, you know Captain America, Thor, Wolverine. They just run like a Terminator computer, where they're just like, I got to find more of this stuff. And then occasionally I get, because I have black and white work, oh wow, that's just like the old Conan magazines, and back in the day. So I'd get a conversation and maybe a sale. But then the biggest question was always, do you do commissions? And
Yeah.
can you
Is it?
do me a
Can you draw a red sun? Yeah.
uh yeah, I mean, and it's like, and I do not care to sit at a show and draw, which all the people that I knew, were always like, "You're crazy, man. You
Yeah.
could be making, a couple $100, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Yeah, but the problem is my head's down and I
Yeah.
can't, see and talk to people, and try to engage, and so on and so forth." So, I don't know. I mean, I think that might be something where we're gonna have to. I wouldn't do a big show because there are a lot of small shows.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I think one of the places you and I are going to have to head down to is SPX in DC.
Okay.
Um, I was down there with a friend of mine twice. I think we went. He actually ended up the last time. I think that was like in 2018 too.
Uh-huh.
And it's where the independents they meet. You know, and I think that's an important thing, is to find where we most definitely would be welcomed. You know, and to maybe even be a part of as a community. Who knows?
Yeah, well, once we have the content ready to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, so, that's what we're working towards. And I we have to acknowledge, where the popular culture is. As we speak now, Disney owns Marvel, and DC is trying to compete, with some of their movies and product lines, and it's in a lot of ways it is a revitalization of superheroes and storylines, but on the other hand, the print comic creators are probably at historic lows. um,
yeah,
and indie comics are fighting for an ever shrinking slice of the pie. Um, it's similar to music. Right now you have a lot of consolidation in the industry, and a lot of big names that have sold their catalogs to giant mega
hmm
corporations. And then you have record stores which are dwindling. And one thing that records are doing, they have record store day, and they have these like limited editions that you can only buy in a record store. And so they're trying to draw people back into record stores, and vinyl records, are experiencing a resurgence. And it's very similar to comics in that,
I agree.
right now you can go to like Barnes and Noble, or you can go to lots of different stores like Urban Outfitters, or lots of different places in the mall, and you could buy brand new vinyl records, of all the like famous bands, like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, and the Foo Fighters and all these different bands. And you're paying like $20 for a brand new sealed vinyl record that's recently manufactured. And then all these kids are realizing, all these kids and 20 somethings are realizing, hey, if I just go to like a record convention, I can pick up $1, for $1 I can pick up these records. Just they're used, but they still play, and you get 15 songs for $1. It's much better deal. So why don't I just do that? And the answer is yes. You should do that.
Right.
And people are doing that, and they have been doing that forever. So the same thing goes, with comics. I don't know what the collectors markets are doing now, but I know that the real marquee comics are selling for headline making amounts. Like Action Comics #1 sold for 3.5 million in the last year or two. A copy of Marvel Comics #1, just broke a record, which was the first Human Torch. Um, and it's amazing to me because these are like pieces of paper that were
Yeah.
printed in the 30s or 40s, in some cases, or maybe even the 60s. But it's just going to turn, oxygen is not your friend. And these things are going to turn to pulp, and they're going to turn to mush. So, the fact that they're selling for $1 million means they have to be sealed and hermetically, encased, protective, like like wrappers, and then the grading, companies, they're
Yeah.
they're making a mint off of all this
Yeah.
stuff. And then,
Yeah.
there's auction houses, and there's brokers, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. Um, and we could also talk about the original art market, right? How
Yeah.
cool would it be to own a Kirby page, right? Right?
Yeah.
And so they're selling for
Yeah.
10,000, 20,000 a piece, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or or anybody, Gil Kane, or whoever your favorite guy is, Marshall Rogers, John Byrne, all of these original art pages are all sold on the secondary markets, you know, and of course the open secret that is that comic artists, when they take a job with Marvel or DC, actually make more money selling the original art after the comic is
Yeah,
done.
yeah, and that was the problem with the Image guys. Just to jump in, is that then everything became a splash page. You
Right,
know,
right.
every page
Right.
was a money shot. It was
Yeah.
just, and then so you missed the quiet moments.
Right.
And a quiet moment is a page or two where it's just
That's a good point.
really well designed, two people sitting in a room having coffee, talking about, um, where it's all going.
Yeah, that's a great point. I always say, like, and the thing I always had against Image, and who were the first guys? Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee and Eric
Todd Mc,
Larson
Todd
and Todd
McFarlane.
McFarlane. Yeah, was that so much of the time you would just turn the page and you would get like what I call posturing, right? It's just like
Yeah,
these badass
yeah,
poses, of these guys looking really like mean and imposing, and they look like they're so pissed off, their brows are furrowed, and it's like they are clearly facing their greatest challenge ever, right? But
right,
where is the action? Like, where are the
right,
sequences of throwing a punch, dodging, flipping upside down, throwing a canister at somebody, like
right,
that's what's really been lost. And everything is just about posing and looking like a badass, in an imposing pose, but not, and that's why I miss, the master Jack Kirby, and that's why I miss, some of these old, teams where they would have like the acrobatic sequences, and they would show, chases, and they would show, stuff that would really get you into the story,
right,
as opposed to just gawking,
right. Well, with that being said, we've come to the 45-minute mark, and I'm really getting hungry and need to go
Yep.
make my lunch. But yeah, that's episode number 3 we got in the can. And I look forward to us getting together next Sunday,
Yeah,
talking shop.
I'm just doing page 2 here of issue 2. And we spoke a lot about the nuts and bolts. One thing I would like to discuss next time is, if you haven't seen it yet, is the Spider-Man movie No Way Home.
Mm,
Because I saw it last night. It was only $5.99 on my cable system, so that
yeah,
was reasonable. And I hear your reaction, but
yeah.
we have to keep tabs on what the consumption is, I think. And so I would just like to do 5 minutes on my thoughts, and see if you're gonna if you're gonna
We'll see
see
what
it, yeah,
happens.
then we'll discuss it. If not, you tell me. If not, you tell me if I can just spoil the whole thing. But there's that. And I also saw
It's
an
all
episode
right.
of Moon Knight too last night, which is kind of getting weird. It's kind of taking some twists. But let's talk about that next week, and other stuff too.
All right,
All
brother.
right, guys. Thanks for
Yep.
tuning in, and I'll see you soon, Kurt.